let's get to our first conversation now. Earlier this month, the U.S. warned its citizens in Nigeria of elevated threats to major hotels in the largest cities of Nigeria. We see the U.K., Canada also issued a warning against non-essential travel to Nigeria. Well, let's gauge the economic impact of these warnings. Joining us is Mr. Ayodeji Ebo, Managing Director, Chief Business Officer at Optimus by Afrinvest. Great to have you on the show. Good morning.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
Yes, so this is definitely not good news. At a time, the government's trying to reduce, pressure on the naira and attract foreign investors. How are you seeing this?
Okay, I think the first thing we need to note is that beyond this statement that have been published, what is the current data also saying? So when you look at the Security Threat Index, we rank 9, which is the rating is 9 out of 10. You look at the Global Peace Index, we are about, I think, 141 out of 175. So the reality is that the insecurity problem in the country is still facing us in the face. And they also hold the responsibility to guide also their citizens in terms of the movement. It's unfortunate. Our government they've been trying to do a lot to see how they want to improve on the insecurity problem in the country. However, it's about the result. It's until we begin to see that result or we begin to see that impact that would impact on whatever indices that has been put out there. So, for instance, we know how politics can also be very rowdy in Nigeria. So, when there are elections, and there are some election-prone areas that, if you are not also careful during election, they are always very volatile. So, I think caution is good, and it may not augur well for the efforts that government is putting in place to have that perception to be able to get in investors. But I feel that if we are consistent and we continue to put all hands on deck to ensure that insecurity is dealt with, is brought to its nails, then at least to a minimal level, then I think we would naturally, even domestic investors, they are also very skeptical. So you look at it in terms of the farming, you would discover that it's affecting food inflation this significantly, because a lot of arable land that most people are cultivated in the past, a lot of farmers can't even access some of those areas again, which is impacting on the demand. So I would say that sadly, it may not be a good report, but it has also its element of truth. What we just have to do as a country is just continue to channel efforts. We are trying to see how we want to bring down insecurity to its nails to be able to improve economic activities. So once we're able to achieve that, the same report will also change its course. Thank you.
All right. Would you say it's okay for other countries to give such advisory about another country? And what do you think the federal government should be doing at this time with this information coming out from most of these top countries?
Okay, thank you. So the first thing is that the government also has a sense of responsibility to provide guidance or provide reports for its citizens. So, like when there were crises in Niger, in some African countries, we also issued a report that Nigerians should be careful. So these reports are issued from time to time, and with the holder obligation. Secondly, what should we be doing now is to just continue to reinforce and continue to ensure that some of the things we are putting in place are yielding results. It's good when you highlight, government would highlight a lot of the strategies that they are putting in place. However, it's until we begin to see results. So you look at in Nigeria across the country, beyond even the political risks that we're seeing, killings, you see ritual, kidnapping. There's this one, also one chance that it may not be pronounced, but it's happening within the communities. You hear different news from colleagues, people running into that. So these are things that put the country on that insecurity map. So it's to intensify effort, and if we see that one strategy is not yielding results, then let's rejig it and let's see what we can do for us to minimize it so that it can also make this country bearable for all of us. So you see, for instance, it's affecting tourism. In the past, remember those days, I've been to Yankari Game Reserve then, I think around 2006. I can't try that now. And they are losing income indirectly. So you see a lot of the tourist attraction where the economy should be able to, now that even dollar, naira is very expensive, Nigeria, we can localize and improve on our tourist system and make it profitable, and also make improve business activities through it. So there's a lot we can do. We are losing a lot by not bringing down the insecurity level in the country.
Definitely, insecurity is a big blow to the tourism industry. And one thing I like about the tourism industry is that when money comes in, you don't have to worry about, repatriation, because the money is coming in and staying in. So we need to definitely promote tourism right here in the country. But with the inflation story, right now, every country has been battling inflation since 2022 into 2023. Paint a picture of how the insecurity situation is stoking inflation in Nigeria.
Okay, thank you. So the first area we need to look at is the food inflation, which is almost approaching 30% year on year. So you would observe that it's a market of demand and supply. Apart from the import element, farming activity is reducing on a daily basis. I was opportune to speak with some practitioners in the industry, and they said there are some areas that in the last 5 years, they are unable to cultivate. And this cuts across. So, and if there's no planting, harvest would be low, and as a result, it will reduce supply, which will lead to higher prices. We also, some prices also across the Niger crisis also impacted, and we had to also close the border, impacted on food inflation, so which is also insecurity. So you would see the role that insecurity is playing in the country, which we have to now pay significantly for. So these are areas that we should focus on: earthquake crisis. How can we bring them to a barest minimum level such that farmers can go back, they can plant? We're talking about diversifying our FX base. We can be able to also begin to export if we are self-sufficient in some of these items, or if we can produce them to a certain level.
And looking at our local investors right now, how do you think they can position themselves in times like this? And do you see any impact on the local equities market? We've hit a new high yesterday, about 70,600 for the all-share index. What are you seeing?
Okay, I think for the market, we expect that, there may be a bit of market correction. The third quarter result was positive, which drove sentiment. But I think that when we look at what the current prices are currently at, if you are not a long-term investor, you need to also be a bit cautious. Investors are coming in anticipation of foreign investors into this market, but we feel that it may take a while, let's say from maybe, if there's consistency in our FX policy, maybe from middle of next year or towards the end of next year. Part of what we are looking at is also if the rates are also dropped in the global space, that we may begin, that would prompt foreign investors to begin to look at the country. But by and large, we feel it's been positive for investors, getting at 40% year-to-date return, which is above inflation rates. It's really a positive one for investors.
And looking at the year-to-date gain so far, in the local equities market, going into we're in the fourth quarter now. What are you expecting for earnings? We have seen a lot of earnings come out from major stocks listed. Some impressive, some we could see the FX issue hitting them really hard. What are you seeing for the fourth quarter, and how do you think investors can also position for stocks that might likely do well in this fourth quarter?
Okay, thanks for that question. I think I would like to take it by sector. So you look at the banking sector, we've seen that most of the top banks have posted very impressive results as a result of the foreign exchange gains. However, there's also a policy that has constrained them from paying out that gain as dividend. So it means that what we need to look at is there's what we call normalized trend. When you take out that foreign exchange gain that you see like one off, what is their performance? It's not going to be as good as what we expect. So we believe that once we see a bit of correction within the banking space, investors can also position, then with focus on those that are consistent in paying good dividend. Secondly, in the manufacturing space, for most of these companies there, because of higher cost of finance, higher cost of production, is also impacting on margin. So we expect that there will be less dividend for those companies. But if you're a long-term investor, it's also good you can position in some of these companies. We feel that the cement industry, with some of the policies that government wants to start using cement for road construction, so in the medium to long term, would also be positive. That will increase demand for some of those companies. But by and large, the equities market is also an investment option to protect yourself against inflation. And you should also recall it's not for everyone. Your risk appetite is medium to high before you want to consider investing in stocks.
And let me take you back to the FX market now. Looking at the close that we saw yesterday, the naira did weaken. What direction does that give us for the naira this week? Are you expecting more weakening or a strengthening at some point this week?
Okay, thanks. I think it's based on the traction that we see from the CBN. What we saw last week was as a result of clearing some of the backlogs. So the market is also expecting, if that is sustained, even if not up to that volume of $500 million, but you begin to see action and clear backlogs, we believe that there will be appreciation. So if nothing is done, then all the gains can also be reversed, because what happened we effectively saw last week was speculators and profit takers were the ones that made the market appreciate this significant, almost 300 naira within 1 week. So, but when they see that the action of the CBN is not being backed up, or their thoughts are not being backed up with actions, then you see speculation resume, and we may begin to see the naira depreciate again.
I guess we have to find a way to impress the speculators so they can go long on the naira going forward. Thank you so much, Mr. Ayodeji Ebo, MD, Optimus by AfriInvest. It was great having your perspective this morning. Thank you.
Always my pleasure. Have a good day now.
All right, after the break, we'll drill down on the mobile money industry and find out what's happening with cash circulation. That's our next conversation. To stay with us, this is Business Morning.